This is another series of carvings on a 2-inch poplar dowel, and in this case I'm using G-code generated by a program called Gyotograph. This was written by Gert Burkhardt and generously made free to use in 2018. In his documentation there are some links regarding payment, but don't bother with those because they're either dead or hacked. This program runs on Windows and does a quite large variety of guilloche type patterns. This particular one is just circular, but the next two are a little more what people expect to see. If some of the lines look like they are wider at the end than at the beginning, it's because they are. This program has a feature of trying to V-carve some of these lines. And it looks great on paper. I haven't quite decided if it looks so good in wood, at least not in a pattern that's this small. The G-code for this program actually runs better on a CNC with the orientation of the axes for that. I did a simple text edit of this G-code, swapping the Z coordinates for the X coordinates. That's a simple search and replace function. There are a large number of sample patterns included with the program, as well as very good documentation. This pattern was repeated 4 times around the dowel. I pulled the camera back and panned down a bit so you can see how the stepper motors and pulleys are working on the front of this. As I mentioned in my metal lathe adaptation video, I put some brass spinner handles on this so I can use the metal lathe as a regular metal lathe at any time. This is an 800-watt spindle with a 90-degree router bit in the collet. So this video speeds up because it's got to finish this one and 2 more. Poplar dowel from the hardware store is really a terrible type of wood to use for this kind of thing, but it's cheap, readily available, and for checking patterns and how they might look on a real piece, it's very convenient. I can run a series of side-by-side comparisons quite easily. I put a tailstock extension on so that the cross slide can get all the way out to the end of a 12-inch piece of wood. This spindle is spinning at roughly 4,000 to 5,000 RPM. Poplar is so soft that the carbide router bit has no trouble cutting this at all. In utilizing this program, I generally set the start point at the surface of the work as X0 and the Z0 is at the beginning of the pattern on the left. The next example is sort of a fishnet pattern. This one was also constructed as a V-carve type pattern with a 90-degree V-bit. But as you'll see in a few minutes, I'm not so convinced that that worked that well. The pattern to the left was repeated 4 times around this dowel. This one is repeated just twice. This is speeded up roughly 2 times. As is typical with V-carving, the programs will do a partial carve and then finish the job in a second pass. Some of these lines are thick and some are thin, which is just what is seen in the sample image. But on wood like this, I think it probably works out better as just a single line. So now it's starting the second part of the pattern that goes right the way around. This is more near the end of all the cutting, where it's done a second pass over most of the piece. So I'll speed that up as well. This third example is more what you might expect to see with guilloche. I've spaced out the lines so it's easier to see. The original version of this pattern, the lines are really very close together, which might be suitable for etching on glass or using a laser. But this 90-degree V-bit cuts a fairly wide path. The calculations for matching this program all the way around the circumference of this piece of dowel are done automatically by the program if you enter its diameter. So I've sped this up 2 times, so the watching is a little more enjoyable. This pattern ended up working out quite well. It's quite a promising pattern for a piece this size or something a little bigger. The control card I'm using for this is Mach 3 right now. I hope these three examples give you some idea of what Gyotograph is capable of. And I hope you enjoyed watching this short demonstration.